Well, first of all, thank you for all saying yes and being here this evening. I want to spend a little time with you just reflecting, as Kathy has already said, on this icon of St. Simon of Cyrene. Stephen origin, as you have heard or will soon hear, really takes its origin from the book of the Acts of the Apostles. In the second chapter, we hear the story of the early church. There were so many needs that were coming up, it's actually chapter 4, for the early church, that the apostles were no longer to meet all of those needs. So they appoint 7 men to assist them, particularly in taking care of the widows, the orphans, the distribution of goods to the community. And that's really the origin, at least from our Catholic perspective, of the office of deacon. And of course, those 7 are named, and the first among them is Stephen. And that's how Stephen Ministry gets its name. And as we began Stephen Ministry here in the parish, I reflected on that, and as what the call of a Stephen minister is to be. And I thought, well, I think the patron saint for Stephen Ministries is St. Simon of Cyrene. Now, Simon of Cyrene is mentioned in the Gospels. We come across him as Jesus is on his way to crucifixion. He's the man who's pulled from out of the crowd and compelled to carry the cross of Jesus. Now, you might think, well, why would Father choose him? Well, there is a reason why I chose St. Simon of Cyrene and provided this icon for our Stephen ministers here at St. Cecilia, St. Thomas, and St. Peter and Paul parishes. Some of you may remember a few years ago, there have been any numbers of movies made about the life of Christ. Well, a few years back, Mel Gibson did his interpretation of the life of Jesus. And in that film, one scene that particularly has stayed with me is the scene of Jesus on his way to crucifixion and the encounter between Jesus and Simon of Cyrene. And I thought about that when we started Stephen Ministry here. And I thought, this really captures what I see Stephen Ministry being all about. In the film, Simon is pulled forcibly by the Roman centurions and forced to accompany Jesus on his journey. Now, when each of you were invited to be a Stephen minister, you may have thought, well, why me? Why should I get involved in all of this? I've got enough things going on in my life. Why me? Why me being asked to potentially, sit there with someone and get involved in their life's situation? Simon surely must have felt that way. You ultimately said, yes, I'm willing to do this. Simon probably didn't get that chance to say yes. He was just simply thrust into the situation. But then something very interesting happens, at least the way that Mel Gibson depicts the scene. In the movie, Simon is brought over, and the crossbeam is laid across his shoulders. It's still on Jesus' shoulder, but it's also now on Simon's shoulder. And in the movie, Jesus extends his right hand across the crossbeam, and it falls across Simon's right shoulder. Simon extends his hand across the beam, and it falls across Jesus' left shoulder. And the cross beam is between them. And they walk together. That, for me, really is the essence of what Stephen Ministry is about. It's about walking the journey together with someone with whatever particular cross they are carrying. Hand over each shoulder. the cross in between. Book that I'm reading right now, I had never really thought about this. It's a book of reflections by Pope Francis. And he talks about, if you read the Gospels, most of Jesus' ministry and most of Jesus' instruction and most of Jesus' parables are delivered while he's walking. People encounter Jesus as he's walking. If you think after the resurrection, the story of the disciples on the road to Emmaus, they encountered Jesus while they're walking, and he walks with them. And so here with Simon of Cyrene, it's walking together. It's journeying together. Now, as Mel Gibson plays out that scene in the movie, as I said, Simon starts out not really too willingly. Matter of fact, he's quite resistant. But as the journey goes on, you see a change come over Simon. And when they reach Calvary's Mount, and Simon is brusquely dismissed by the Roman authorities, of course, the onlookers are ridiculing Jesus. And Simon turns around and he reprimands those who are mocking Jesus. By walking with Jesus, by sharing in his cross, Simon has become a disciple. He's experienced conversion. By allowing himself to enter into that life situation of this convicted criminal, he himself has had a change of heart. That, for me, is what I believe Stephen ministry is all about. I have shared with other groups my definition of compassion. Now, you can look it up in the dictionary. It's a compound word, compasio, from the Latin, to feel with. It's more than sympathy, it's empathy, but I have my own definition. A Stephen minister is a minister of compassion, is a Simon of Cyrene. A Stephen minister makes themselves available to simply sit in the heart of another person. A Stephen minister is a Simon of Cyrene who opens their heart and allows another human being to sit there. That's what Simon ultimately did. That's what Simon ultimately experienced. And so, this is why I think this particular icon of that scene of Simon of Cyrene walking with Jesus, sharing the cross together, I would propose to all of you to be the patron saint and the gospel scene that grounds your ministry. And it is a ministry as a Stephen minister.